Now, let us hear from Judge Wilson. Welcome, Judge.
Thank you.
And to your family as well.
I'm extremely both grateful and humbled by the governor's nomination. And I wanted to thank you, Chairman Rowan Wilson, the Colombo, and all the members of the committee who have taken the time to consider my nomination. So in fact, thank you staff as well. I'm sure they're working very hard on this, and I appreciate it. I look forward to answering your questions as honestly and forthrightly. I would like to introduce my family members here. My wife, my Grace, who's our in the corner there, and our youngest daughter, Eleanor, who's 12 years old and graduating 5th grade. We have two other daughters, Isabel, who's 24. The last time everybody was here, Isabel, though, now is employed at charity in Crown Heights and is busy working there today. And our 18-year-old Anna is a senior in high school. We've been dragging her around to various colleges. Just making sure for the next 2 weeks. And it's going to be a little bit tough. Eleanor told me something that I've forgotten if I got it right. It's either that she was happy to have an in-person civics lesson in this day of school, or despite how boring this might be, or this was going to be really exciting and she was having this boring in school. But one of those, I think, I got it.
I'm going to apologize. The acoustics are a little low in here, so if you could just speak up a little more. Thank you so much.
Sure, I will do that. So it might help for me to offer a little bit of my background that you can't believe from the materials we have before you. My parents met in graduate school at Boston University. My father was getting a master's degree in education, my mother a PhD. My mother was totally blind. And when my father finished his master's degree, they left in California, they got married in Boston and moved. They didn't like the cold. And my father worked as a teacher for the state. My mother, after I'm the oldest, and after she had 3 of us, my brother and my sister, she went back to get her PhD at UC Berkeley, which she earned in 1972. My job was to take her to her classes, to read some of the materials to her, and then to take her to job interviews. And I can't tell you how many I went to where she was told she was overqualified, really for jobs that she was overqualified for, but those were the ones that she had any chance of trying to get. She also ended up working for the state of California for a few years. When I was a sophomore in high school, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I was probably too young, and some people maybe didn't tell me fully, but she was terminally ill. And she wanted me to go away from college. I did not really want to go. I wanted to stay at Berkeley and go to school there, walk down the street, but and I never refused to do anything she asked. So off I went, and I returned after my sophomore year. I was 18 years old, and my mother passed away. 10 days after college. My father, earlier, had a stroke when I was 7. He was in rehabilitation for a while, but they left, and I didn't get back until age 7. When I was in my second year, I was in a much more severe stroke that left him unable to talk or eat for the rest of his life. He lived in 20 years, including the last 5 years, with his wife Grace and our oldest daughter, so he still remembers. Growing up, my parents, we didn't have luxuries. My parents gave me
that should help. Considerably more important, which was a great education and a strong sense of honesty and ethics. When I finished law school, I returned to California to clerk for Judge James Browning, the Chief Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. Midway through my year of clerking for him, he asked me to stay for a second year to be his administrative law clerk to help him administer all the courts within the Ninth Circuit, which account for about 1/4 of all the federal cases decided. When I was there, the Ninth Circuit was split, highly split ideologically. Even so, everybody loved Judge Browning. He never had a cross word to say about anybody. He never raised his voice. And he treated his colleagues and the people, the homeless people in the Tenderloin where the courthouse sat, with the same way, with the same smile, the same greeting, hello friend, the same twinkle in his eye. One thing that really has stuck with me is there was a day when he and I were the only one left in chambers at night. And he was leaving, and he could have gone straight out into the hallway and left, but instead of taking that path, he came into my office because he knew I was going to be there a lot longer. And he said to me, you know, this is the best job you're ever going to have. And then he left. And then he cracked the door back open, stuck his head in and said, unless you have my job someday. And what I've come to realize is that he was absolutely right. Although I came to New York after finishing my clerkship, I intended to stay in New York only for a few years. Two things happened that caused me to stay permanently. The lesser of the two was that I really loved my legal practice at Cravath. The much greater of the two was that I really loved my wife, Grace, and she's a dyed-in-the-wool New Yorker. Her family goes back in Long Island for generations, and there was no way she was leaving, which meant there was no way I was leaving. So for better or worse, you're all stuck with me. I first applied for consideration to sit on the Court of Appeals in 2012. I appeared on the Commission's list 6 times before I was nominated in 2017. Friends and colleagues wondered why I would leave a law practice I love to serve on the Court of Appeals, and the answer has to do with the values that my parents imbued in me and the historic role of this great court. The state of New York had a legislature, it had a governor, it had a high court, and it had a constitution before the United States existed. For more than a century, the Court of Appeals has been the foremost state court in the nation. At times, it has been the foremost court in the nation. It is vital that we restore the court to its position of national preeminence and ensure that the public is confident in the court's integrity. The court's role and legitimacy is particularly important now in the face of the U.S. Supreme Court's retreat from several of its seminal decisions. In that environment, the actions of state governments, whether legislative, executive, or judicial, take on greater import. Our court is now presented with an opportunity to reestablish itself as the clear leader among its peers. It is both a great privilege and an immense obligation to serve as one of its judges. I have tried, to the best of my ability, to live up to the standards befitting the great history and traditions of our court, and as Judge Browning advised me, I do have the best job in the world. I should tell you a little about how I have approached judicial decision-making. For questions of statutory interpretation, my sole objective is to determine what the legislature intended. Same for contracts. What is it the parties intended? If the words used are clear and unambiguous, those words take precedence over all else. But simple cases rarely come to us. I turn, therefore, to other contemporaneous sources to aid to understand what the legislature intended or what the contracting parties wanted. In common law cases, although it is the court's responsibility to adjust the common law and its duty to ensure that common law rules keep pace with social and economic changes, it's also important that the common law be informed by the existing body of the common law as well as legislative enactments. The area in which the greatest care is needed and the court needs to move the most slowly is in constitutional adjudication, because mistakes in legislation, mistakes in contract interpretation can be readily fixed. Mistakes in constitutional interpretation are much harder to fix. But whatever the nature of the issue before me is, my job and the job of my colleagues on the court is to follow the law to the answer, not to construct a path to a predetermined endpoint. The role of chief judge is different from the role of associate judge, both because the chief judge personifies the court to the public and because the chief judge has a variety of unseen responsibilities, including managing the court's docket, attempting to build consensus through compromise, working with the governor and the legislature on budgeting and resource issues, and overseeing the administration of the entire judicial system. If I'm confirmed, I know I will have a great partner in Justice Joseph Zayas, who's over there to the right. He shares my commitment to the principles of justice and a vision for the court system that will serve all New Yorkers. I'm also very lucky to have 5 wonderful colleagues on the Court of Appeals, and I know that the committee is going to consider Caitlin Halligan. I know her to be a superb lawyer, and if she is confirmed, she would be a tremendous addition to our bench. The ideal chief judge would be someone committed to the court's historical role as the greatest common law court in the country, committed to advancing the fairness, intelligibility, and efficiency of the court system, and committed to maintaining a healthy balance among our 3 branches of government. The chief judge should be someone who is independent and impartial, who has a firm understanding of the role of an apex court in our tripartite system of government, is a creative problem solver, values the ideas and opinions of others, and is motivated by a genuine love of the law. What we need now, more than anything, is a steadying influence on both the jurisprudential and administrative sides. Those are the objectives that I would set for myself were I to serve as chief judge, and the standards to which I would expect to be held. I've always tried to conduct myself in a way that would make my parents proud. I learned to read very early on because my mother needed a reader. I went straight from college to law school to employment to make sure that I would be able to support my younger siblings and my father. I remained at Cravath because I loved the challenge of the work, which made the long hours seem like minutes. I became the youngest person elected to partnership in the firm's long history and the first partner of color. When I applied to serve on the Court of Appeals, I thought I could bring to it not merely my abilities and love of the law, but also 3 decades of experience as a commercial lawyer with a broad practice. New York is the world's commercial hub, and its high court should have some judges with that background. I understand the position of chief judge requires love of the law, honesty, open-mindedness, and tireless devotion. That is the essence of what I have to offer. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.